Sara from AverageBetty here at Los Angeles Times Test Kitchen with Chef Noelle Carter, the director of the Los Angeles Times Test Kitchen. Chef, thanks for having me.
Thank you so much for being here. Welcome to the Test Kitchen.
What are we going to be preparing today?
We're smoking today. We're smoking ribs, actually. I'm going to show you how to make hickory smoked ribs indoors in your own home.
How is it possible for us to smoke ribs indoors with the California Indoor Clean Air Act? Are we going to get arrested for this?
Well, hopefully not. All it really takes is a roasting pan, a rack, some finely ground wood chips, and your meat.
Well, let's get cooking. Smoking.
Smoking. So we're going to start with our rub because, the most important part of barbecue is the seasoning and the flavoring after the smoke. It may sound complicated because there's a lot of ingredients, but it's really not. I'm going to start with some smoked paprika. I've got a little cumin to give it some earthy flavor. Have to have our garlic. We've got some oregano. We've got some onion powder, some chili powder, because you want just a little heat. If you don't like what's in here though, tweak it, to suit your own taste. Got some salt.
And that was black pepper right after the chili
Black
powder.
pepper,
Okay.
celery salt for a little tang. And then of course we needed a little sweet too, so I've got some brown sugar in here. And you could use a fork to mix everything up, but I'm just gonna use my fingers.
You're hosting the Labor Day block party at The Taste, the Los Angeles Times food and wine event with Nancy Silverton, and the theme is going whole hog. Is that anything like going all in poker?
It's like poker, only we're talking food and beverages and fun. Fun with your friends. This isn't fancy. It's gonna be a fun party. So we've got our rub ready to go. Let's go ahead and get the ribs. So I have a rack of baby back ribs here. And you could use any type of rib you want, spare ribs. Go ahead and smoke brisket if you want. And I'm just gonna go ahead and wipe these off. One of the big things whenever you're cooking ribs, any type of rib, there's a thin, clear membrane underneath the bones, and it's called the silver skin. And what you want to do is make sure that that's removed before you cook the ribs. Removing the silver skin will help the seasoning, the rub to penetrate, and it'll also help the ribs stretch out a little more when they're cooking. That membrane likes to contract when it's cooked. What I'm doing is I'm just taking a butter knife and I'm sliding it under the bone, and you'll see it peels off really easily. Just like that. And now I'm gonna put my rub on. I'm gonna grab a good handful. Treat these ribs like you want yourself to be treated. When I add this rub, I massage it in. You really wanna pat it in and tell it how much you love it because the food responds.
Yes. Who doesn't love a little rubbing and massaging?
Exactly.
People might pay to have this done in Beverly Hills.
And it smells good too. Forget the lavender and the rosemary. Let's go ahead and get the rib rub. I'm thinking we could market that.
I definitely think we could.
I've got my ribs ready to go. How beautiful is that?
They look fabulous.
And then I'm gonna put this back in the fridge and let it sit overnight.
Overnight?
Overnight. You want that rub to really soak in and start interacting with the meat, and it'll form what you call a pellicle, which is this stickiness on the outside of the ribs. And that's actually what's gonna help the smoke adhere when we go to smoke the ribs.
In lieu of me spending the night here because I couldn't get security clearance for that.
I don't think I have security clearance for that either. I went ahead and refrigerated this yesterday, and so you can kind of see the difference between the two. This one is the one that I just rubbed, and you can see that the spices are still kind of on top. This one, you can tell it's been sitting, the spices are kind of soaked in, and if you touch it, it's a little tacky.
Often tacky is not good, but in the case of ribs...
Sometimes tacky is good. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So now we're gonna get smoking.
Let's smoke.
I have a cooling rack that I really don't care about anymore. I'm gonna stick that in there, and then I've got really fine hickory chips, and these are made specifically for stovetop smokers. You'll see they're a lot finer than the hickory chips you might use if you were cooking outdoors.
And a lot finer than what you might put in your gerbil cage.
Definitely, definitely. So I'm gonna go ahead and put these, although God, that would smell really good in a hamster or gerbil cage. Like hickory smoked hamsters.
Right,
So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna put about 3 tablespoons in a corner of the roasting pan here because I want the chips just over where I'm gonna have the burner. Okay. So we don't need the chips spread out all over, that's just a waste of chips.
Okay.
And we gotta save them for the hamster cage. And I'm gonna go ahead and put the rack in. And I'm gonna lay that in there all gentle. I've got my foil, and let's do this up really tight because we don't want too much smoke to escape. Okay, so I've got this all covered up, and I'm gonna leave just a little corner open.
Peekaboo.
And then we're gonna get the burner going. I'm gonna start it at medium heat, and we should start to see, we'll smell it, and then we should start to see a trickle of smoke in a minute or so. Oh, check that out. Can you see the smoke?
It's already smoking.
So I'm gonna go ahead and finish covering this up. And you'll see like a little bit of it will escape, but not enough to scare the neighbors. So we're literally just gonna let this smoke for an hour. We're not gonna completely cook it on the stovetop, but just enough to really let that smoke flavor penetrate.
An hour, so we've got time to play a quick game of poker.
This is true. Are you all in?
I am all in.
Oh, good.
I'm going whole hog.
Woohoo! Excellent. We'll pretend that an hour's gone by, and I'll show you what it would look like. Ooh, check out that smoke. Isn't that beautiful?
Yeah.
And did you see how the foil really contained it?
Yes. Oh
Hopefully
my
we
gosh,
won't
and
set
it
off the-
smells like Girl Scout camp here.
It's going to be fun. Well, you can see that the smoke is just starting to penetrate. It's already taking on a darker color. This rack has smoked for about an hour now. And you can see when you're done with it, the ash gets really black, and sometimes it'll just turn into a powder. When you are done smoking, just a note, do not just throw the ash out into the garbage can because it's hot and you could start a fire. But
That's a great tip. Don't set the house on
Don't
fire.
set the
That
house
pretty
on-
much ruins everything every time, trust
you know,
me.
It would. Okay, so we've got our rack and it's been smoking for an hour. And what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go ahead and place it in a baking dish, just as if we were cooking outdoors. I'm gonna make a mop, which is, you know, if you're a professional smoker or a professional smoker, I love that. If you're a professional cooking smoker, you know, you use a mop to keep your meat tender while you're smoking it. We're gonna do a makeshift version of that while we bake them in the oven. Just 3 simple ingredients: mustard, water, and then I've got a little vinegar because we want that tang. So I'm gonna mix that together. Oh, and I'm gonna grab a couple more tablespoons of that dry rib rub, just to add a little extra flavor.
This liquid that we're making here is actually called a mop,
It
even
is
though
called
that
a mop.
looks
Okay.
like a mop.
This is a mop. This is a barbecue mop. You can find them at cooking supply stores, some gourmet stores. If you don't have a mop, spoon it over, pour your mop over, whatever works.
The only mop I'm typically used to working with is the one on my head, so
I would not use your hair, although you know it would make you smell like barbecue.
that'll get all the boys to the yard.
If that's what you're going for. Okay, so I'm just gonna lightly mop this over just to kind of keep those ribs moist while they bake. I'm gonna cover this up with foil, cover it up tight, and we're gonna put this in the oven. Okay, so we're gonna finish these at 250 degrees for maybe an hour or so until they're tender and there are some telltale visual signs to know when they're done. And magically, I have a batch ready to show you.
I was hoping you'd say that. Wow, look at those.
We have a batch of finished ribs. This is like love in a baking dish.
And yeah, look at those bones just popped right out. They're boneless ribs now.
Oh yeah, these are so tender.
Wow, and the smell, I'm
Can you
just,
smell it?
I smell the hickory, just, it's so amazing. It does smell like you made these outdoors, but we haven't left this 1 foot radius of the test kitchen.
And fortunately, or maybe unfortunately, the fire department didn't come out. Help yourself. Come on, let's have some ribs.
Let's do it. Wow, they are so tender.
Talk about falling off the bone tender.
Still hot.
Cheers.
Cheers. Whoa, I almost knocked that off.
I'm so happy right now.
I'm in rib heaven. Get Noelle Carter's Hickory Smoked Baby Back Ribs recipe at AverageBetty.com. Noelle, thank you so much. I learned so much. These are absolutely delicious. I can hardly wait to start smoking at home.
Excellent. And come back to the test kitchen anytime. I'm ready for my second one.
You have an advantage. I have a microphone in my hand.
More for me.